Hey folks, thank you so much for joining the masterclass. We are so excited about this masterclass, and we have Vedant today who'll be presenting the masterclass to us. Without any further ado, over to you, Vedant, and let's start the masterclass.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, guys, for having me over here. And I can see a lot of familiar faces. I can see Pranav and Vishwakant and a bunch Sahil, people that I know, and people who I don't know. Thanks for tuning in and taking out your time. The goal for today is very simple. We built a content machine, right? A machine that really churns out content by the loads, by the thousands every month. And there is a secret sauce to it. My goal through this masterclass is going to be to take you through the skeleton and the framework. Just say we created a behemoth, really a machine that creates content the way you want it to. So without any ado, let us get started on this. Yes, give me a second to present my screen. And I hope you guys can see my screen. If that is the case, just give me a thumbs up so I'll know you can see my screen. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Works great.
So yes, content repurposing 101, the basics of how you can really create a monster or a machine that is really churning out content. And as a bonus at the end of this, so the second half, the way I've divided this is 2 workshops, right? Or 2 parts to this entire thing. The first part, I'm going to tell you the framework of how you can really repurpose content. And the second part, I'm going to show you with a real life example of what we did at Joe's Talks for my tenure over there for 4.5 years, where we were purely using this engine to today do 120 million views per month. That means approximately 1 billion views every year is what Joe's Talks is doing currently. And it all started essentially with content repurposing as a framework. So let's get started, and this is going to come at the end. So before that, let's first answer the question of why you should even bother to do content repurposing, right? A lot of people see it as a lot of effort, but I came down to 3 core reasons why you should be bothering with content repurposing, whether you're a short form creator or whether you're a long form creator. The first part or the first step to thinking about it is that all of us consume content on multiple places, multiple formats. We go to different platforms for doing different things. So the same thing is happening with your audience as well. Your audience is distributed everywhere. They are spending some time on YouTube, some time on Facebook, some time on Instagram, and some time on other different types of apps that you will get to understand once you understand your audience. So the way we use it is the exact way that they use it. So you need to be clear about which platforms you want to be on, right? And reach your audience everywhere. Because if you want to build trust with your audience, which is essentially your why you are creating content, to get views, to get trust, you'll have to understand where they are hanging out. That's number 1. Number 2 is to reduce platform dependency, because we know that the current distribution platforms are so big and so vast that if one day you wake up and you get blocked, which happens with a lot of creators, right? You can't do anything about it. There is no Instagram support that you can reach out to and say, I got blocked and unblock my account. And Dharmesh, in fact, was telling me about this, that they've seen multiple examples of creators who have up to 100K, 110K followers who just got banned. So you want to take your bets everywhere. You don't want to be concentrated on just one platform. You want to put it out there everywhere. And the third part is, of course, improve your views. Eventually, it's a views ka game online. And if your purpose, whatever your purpose is with your content, you want to get views and you want to grow your views, which is eventually going to get you revenue, subscribers, engagement, everything else. So it's a numbers game, and it's improving your top line views. So these are 3 reasons why you should consider content repurposing as a strategy. Now, there are 3 simple steps to this, right? And all these 3 are very important, right? The first part is, of course, the creation of the content. No matter what niche you are creating this content on, no matter where you're putting it out on, you've got to create this content first. Number 2 is running it via the repurposing engine. We'll come to what the repurposing engine is. And the third and the key thing to understand over here is that you have to distribute it everywhere that's relevant and possible for you. And the idea is to over-index, not just index yourself on those platforms, but over-index on your platforms. What the over-indexing really means is that you're putting out more content than required. So a typical social media calendar may say you want to put out 4 pieces of content maybe a week, but that's just not enough right now to stand out. We all know that organic reach is eventually falling on all platforms, and that's because of multiple reasons. But the goal is that if you want to build a brand and if you want to build content and distribution, you've got to put out more than is expected so that it compensates for the fact that there is no distribution or lesser organic reach happening on these platforms. And I'm going to take you through the format for all of these platforms that you can see over here and more platforms as and when relevant for your audience, right? This entire theme or this entire content repurposing strategy is inspired by Gary Vee, and the end goal is to create more than 30 pieces of content from one long form video, right? You've got, let's say, one long form video. Short form creators, again, I'll come to that later. But right now, if we talk about long form videos, how can you create more than 30 pieces of content from one video? The first step is, of course, to record your pillar content or the content that is going to be repurposed into multiple formats, right? And this is typically let's say, a commentary video. You can see various examples of creators on the screen, right? So you've got podcasts, you've got commentary videos, you've got videos like what we're going to discuss, Joe Talks, right? Which is a long form 15 to 20 minute video, right? You've got talks, webinars like this one, masterclasses, anything that is long enough to be repurposed. You can start with that and record that, right? For short form creators, think of the pillar content as not the video itself, but the idea or the script behind the video, right? And what is it that you're actually trying to touch upon? If it's a finance reel, then what is the idea that you're talking about? So that becomes sort of your pillar content out of which you are creating the reel, right? So short form creators, instead of thinking of this as the video itself, think of it as the topic or the idea behind the video. So it will help you follow through without getting lost. The next step is, of course, identifying a bunch of things within these videos, right? Number one, you've got to identify the top moments. Luckily, nowadays, what happens is YouTube gives you this graph where you can identify top moments. So that's very helpful. That did not exist when we were doing this 4 or 5 years ago at Joe Talks, right? So we had to go into the graphs and go into the YouTube studio and really understand what are top moments that people are resonating with, right? You got to identify sections, or what is commonly again known today in YouTube as chapters. What are chapters that are relevant and what are the chapters that are covering certain topics, right? The third thing that you've got to identify within this long form content are the stories. ऐसी क्या चीजें और what are some things that are making sense as a cohesive story within this entire space, right? So you'll find multiple such sections, multiple snippets that are short, multiple snippets that are long, certain things that are said by the creator that is very interesting, or said by the commentator that is interesting, unique. And just to add some tips to how you can do this, how do you identify these moments? Because this becomes very critical since the entire strategy is relying on these top moments and stories and sections. How do you actually identify these moments, right? The first thing is, of course, like I said, break down by topics. You have to break down the entire conversation or the entire video by topics and try and understand his time per what topic is being spoken about. The second thing is, of course, checking the comment section and trying to understand what are things, what are lines, what are sentences, what are dialogues, or what are ideas that are resonating with your audiences, right? Because now that will help you identify snippets as well as write the copy for the content. If there is one certain line that's resonated with the audience a lot, that means that it's perfect micro copy for the videos that you're going to put on Instagram. Get some external perspectives. This is very important primarily because if you're working on the same content day in and day out, for your brand, for yourself, or for whoever you're working with, you tend to get a very siloed view of it, right? So it's very good to get an external perspective of somebody who doesn't watch this content as much as you do, to understand, okay, if something is resonating with you as the person who's working on this content, does it also resonate with the people who are watching this content, like literally the consumers that you have? Finding compelling dialogues, one-liners, etc., hard-hitting things that are likely to work as hooks. So there is the concept of the hook with every video that we are putting out, right? What is going to give people the reason to actually stay on and watch the entire thing? And for me, the hook was this, that I'm going to share all of this with you at the end of the presentation, right? So you're hooked on to stay. So you're figuring out the hook over here as well, right? These compelling dialogues, these are things that are going to make people stay through the end of the video. And of course, things like when there are stats being shared, numbers, facts, figures, anything that makes you go like, okay, wow, this is interesting, or this is unique, or this is something I didn't know before. These are all things that will help you identify these moments, right? So step number 1 is done. You've identified the top moments and sections. Now, the next step, or the second thing to do over here, is to really know your platforms and formats in and out, which will come from knowing where your target audience is hanging out, right? So if your target audience is hanging out on Facebook, then you need to know what formats work on Facebook. What are the size of videos and content pieces you need to be putting out on Facebook? What are lengths that perform properly on Facebook? The same thing goes for LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, Snapchat, and any other platform that you're planning to put this content on. This knowledge will really come from you understanding your audience, where they are hanging out, how they are spending their time, what are platforms that they find more valuable. So there is no straight answer to this, right? If you're catering to a millennial audience or the Gen Z audience in the US, then you will naturally look at Snapchat as one of these distribution channels. Whereas if you're looking for 30-year-old uncles who are discussing, I don't know, XYZ on politics, then Facebook is a good platform for you in India. So you've got to understand your platform. You've got to understand formats that work on that platform, which will also involve going onto the platform and seeing what are the kind of videos that are going viral, right? Or videos that are doing a lot of views, to understand how you can use that in your thing. But you need to know this in and out. Matlab, think of it in this way, ki if somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night and asks you what platform requires which size, you need to know that answer. That's how in depth you need to know it for you to actually do this well and execute this at scale. And the third part too is you've got to treat it like an assembly line, right? Where everything is automated, everything is standardized, because this is actually in reality also an assembly line, because you're putting out a lot of content out there. So it needs to be working really fast with zero ambiguity. And generally, when it comes to creating content, there is a lot of ambiguity. Think about the times that you've spoken with your video editor, or think about the times that you've spoken with your social media manager, just to set expectations correct, right? So what you're doing in this method is that you're standardizing everything so that it becomes easier for you to operate this at scale. Is this making sense to you guys until now? Is everybody with me? If you are, give me a thumbs up. Is this making sense? Are you starting to see how things are falling into place for you to actually create a lot of content, right? We are not talking about one video a week. Content repurposing is all about taking one video a week and making 30 pieces of content from it, right? So you're essentially creating a machine that creates content and gets you those views, that distribution that you're really looking for, right? So coming back to standardization, right? You've got to standardize the formats in which the videos are going to go, the layout and the templates for each platform. What are the fonts that you're going to use? What are the layers in the frame that you're going to use? How are the subtitles going to come? What is the outro that's going to perform? What time you're going to be posting this? What are the replies that you're going to do to comments? Every little detail, because again, you're planning to do this at scale. You're planning to do this for hundreds of videos, right? So you need to have every little detail chalked out so that you can optimize for speed. Don't forget the fact that you've not got to go from video to video only, but to video, from video formats to non-video formats as well, which means that you have to post on Twitter as well. When it comes to text content along with the video content, you can put threads, you can put quotes, GIFs, stories, etc. on Instagram. You can even put the newsletter and blogs side by side, again, ultimately to increase your top line, increase the number of people you are able to reach, right? Without further ado, let's get to the second half of it. How can a team that started with just one person and barely 5,000 subscribers or 3,000 subscribers the time I joined the company, right, when I was working over there, today has over 15 million subscribers and does over 1 billion views across social media platforms every year? That's an incredible number. That's literally like 1/7 the population of the world. That's absolutely insane, right? So I'm going to take you through a practical example of it. No theory has been done with. And I'm going to show you how it is exactly done. And if you want to see more of this, of course, you can go and stalk Joe Stock's social media handles on various social media platforms. But the first step is, of course, like I said, creating your pillar content, or going behind the idea of your short video, right? So in this case, this pillar content or this video is approximately 15 to 20 minutes long. And just to give you an example of the scale at which this is happening, the Joe Stocks team currently does about 200 of these pillar content pieces per month, right? So this is happening 200 times over. As an individual creator, you're probably doing it only 4 times a month, and that is absolutely okay. But the idea is to understand how can you maximize the reach of these 4 content pieces as well, instead of going after 200 directly. So they are doing this for 200 content pieces a month. You can be doing this only for 2 content pieces or 4 content pieces a month. But the idea is to create these systems and put things into place so that you can scale your content easily. So you take a pillar piece of content, you got a 15 to 20 minute video. What do you do with it? You take the audio out first. Now it may seem stupid, or it may seem like there is nobody listening to me over there, but the way it works is actually reverse. If you don't put your content out there, there is going to be nobody to see you or listen to you over there, right? So the first thing that the team does is actually take the audio out of the pillar content that they are making, mix it a little bit and put it out on all the audio platforms that are possible. So that's the first step of distribution and over-indexing. Of course, over-indexing being the key word over here. Then you do the first round of micro content and stories, which means that you're making the short videos in the way that we just discussed, that you've got to take the key moments, you've got to take the numbers and the stats and the highlights, etc., things that make sense individually, and make short video content pieces out of it. That's number one. The second thing is, of course, quotes and images. The third thing is blog posts and newsletters. And then there are other mediums. Let me quickly show you examples of these micro content pieces, right? So you're seeing these are video formats. You can see that there are different faces over here, but you can see a striking similarity in how similar they look, right? Because it means that they're following a standard template or a way in which these things are actually going to sort of keep moving forward. It's just happening in one single assembly line. So this is a video that was released, one micro content, one pillar content over here, right? And you've got multiple video in certain templates, fixed templates that are putting out on all social media channels. Similarly, if you talk about quotes, or if you talk about other sort of non-video formats, you can see that there is a format being followed. There is a template that is being replicated 198 times a month, right? So that having that standard allows you the time to work on more pieces of content and to repurpose this content effectively, rather than spending creative energy on what should the design look like. Similarly, on other platforms, as you can see, there is other types of micro content related to the main topic coming out, where you're sharing quotes, you're sharing screenshots, you're sharing polls, etc., to engage the audience. So this first round, actually, I forgot to tell you this. The first round is done before the video is released, right? At least this is how it used to be done. The first round of micro content and stories is done before the pillar content is actually put out there, okay, on YouTube or wherever other place you're doing this. Then you do a second round of micro content and stories, which is being done after this pillar content has been released, right? So you're riding on the wave of the fact that this pillar content has been released, and you're releasing a second round of micro content and stories, which can either be the same content or different content depending on platform and a bunch of other things, right? So you're doing a second round. So you're creating a wave with the first round, then you're peaking it with the release of your content, and that wave sort of goes down with the third round, the second round of micro content and stories. 3 key things to remember when it comes to putting content out there, very, very important. Number 1 is be consistent, supremely important for anybody creating content. Unfortunately, it's something that I also am not able to follow with my channel, but that's also because it's not the biggest priority in my life right now. But if you have the priority of being a content creator, the only thing that matters, and this is something that we've tested at scale to do 1 billion views a year, is that you've got to be consistent with the content that you're putting out. If you've decided a schedule, you got to stick to it, because every algorithm will absolutely love it. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is that you've got to track retention and engagement in your videos. It's almost like you need to have a Google sheet with every video. What was the retention of that video? What is the engagement of that video, right? Engagement percentage of that video. And compare this, because if you don't compare and if you don't know what is outperforming the other one, you will never be able to optimize and grow your channel. You'll keep doing the same strategy over and over again. The goal is to understand what is working and what is not working, double down on the content formats and the types that are working, and throw out the ones that are not working. Right? It's as simple as that. Build what the audience loves. That's the end of it. And the third thing is key, you got to keep innovating with the type of content that you're making, because audiences in today's day and age get bored very easily, right? They've got very short attention spans. They're going to get bored very easily when it comes to the content that you're creating. That doesn't mean that you're reinventing yourself every month, but it means that you've got to maybe have a content bucket where you're experimenting and some content buckets that are stable. In your case, the same thing we did at Joe Stocks as well. So these are three key learnings, I would say, that we understood over here at Joe Stocks when it comes to dealing with the algorithm and best practices when it comes to content. One important thing that most creators and social media managers, I would say, miss out on is really understanding the data of the video content, right? What are themes that are working? What are templates that are working? What are formats that are working and not working? What are platforms and what are the metrics that you're tracking on those platforms becomes supremely important when it comes to data, right? There are always going to be certain themes that resonate more with your audience as compared to other audiences, right? There are going to be certain templates that people react to better, and the average watch duration of the first 5 seconds is better in that template as compared to other templates that you're using, right? How to identify that and how to work on it. What is the music that you're using and how is it affecting this? What are the highlights that you're using and how that is affecting this? And of course, what are the metrics that each video is driving? That becomes supremely critical for you to understand how to optimize for those metrics and how to grow your channel, right? So you've got to understand all this. In gist, this is the results of what the content repurposing engine has done. And this actually brings me to the end of the class, because I didn't want to keep it too long. I think July 2021, and the team did only 36 million views per month, which is also a lot of views, right? But they were able to grow it to 80 million views per month, and this is only YouTube, right? While doing 200 pieces of content every month, right? They increased their subscribers by 5 lakh. And they did approximately, this is 80 million views only on YouTube. So if we talk about views that were outside YouTube, that's another 30 to 40 million, right? So that's 120 million views per month. But I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed with all the numbers and all the figures that are being shown over here. And I can totally understand that some of these things were probably something that you had not expected or you're not thinking of it in this way. But I think the thing to keep in mind, and I'll tell you a story at this moment right now. I joined the team at Joe Stocks in about 2017, right? June. And I was the third person over there. The YouTube channel was basically non-existent. The team was non-existent because there were just 3 to 4 people in the entire team, right? And it started off with that first video and the mindset that we've got to grow and you've got to actually do this for real, right? And create content for real and actually do the incredible number of views that we are doing today for real. So I think it starts with the first video and it starts with the mindset. In today's time, it is very easy to get overwhelmed as a creator, and I totally understand that, right? But what you've got to keep in your mind is that it just happens video by video for everyone. Mr. Beast Phyllo, or you take Joe Stocks, or you take any other channel out there, it's going to start with 0 subscribers, 10 subscribers, 100 subscribers. But all that matters is the fact that you're putting out this content week on week, and number 2, the mindset that you have around putting out this content and why you are doing it, right? If you got that clear and if you're being consistent at it, I can guarantee you, being somebody who's, earned my bread and butter from this space completely over the last 5-6 years, I can guarantee you that if you're consistent and if you're putting it out there regularly, you can really grow and change your life with social media. Identifying this problem was actually and working on this problem was actually, just as a last conclusion, was actually one of the inspirations for me to start my own company. I realized that this is not something that everybody can do, right? Everybody doesn't have the bandwidth to do this. That is exactly what I started the startup that we are working on right now, which is video.ai. And the goal over there is very simple. How can we help creators repurpose their content with minimal effort and create this distribution engine for themselves? So if you're somebody who's creating long-form content, I'd also encourage you to check out our product. We are still very early, lots of things that needs to be fixed over there, but we'd love early feedback from all of you. And that's it from my end, folks. Thank you so much. And I would love to take questions. If any, you can just put them in chat, or if you want to reach out, Twitter is the best way to reach out to me. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm typically pretty active over there as well. But here is also a good opportunity. I have Vishwakant on the call with me right now, who's been a part of this journey with me from the start. Vishwakant, would you like to add something from whatever I've spoken? If you could go on unmute.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, Vedant. So, guys, first of all, I think I saw the post on LinkedIn that this session is going to happen, and I thought, okay, who can be the best person to talk about this rather than Vedant? So, like Vedant mentioned, he joined Josh in 2017, and I joined in 2018. And I have seen that all these strategies and everything. So Vedant is the person who has done a lot, not in just the content space, but he's the person who can do basically is like the jack of all trades, but he's also the master of content. I can't say that master of.
This is not why I asked you to join me on the call.
Yeah, but as speaking of the content repurposing, so like Vedant said that, okay, the number is very overwhelming. But when you talk about Josh, okay, the number is actually overwhelming. लेकिन अगर हम दूसरे creators पे जाते हैं, so you can see this is happening with a lot of creators also who are, not having the subscriber base of 5 million, 7 million, 10 million subscriber base, but people having 100k subscriber or even 10k subscriber are also doing this. So if you are following a content creator in particular, you can go to the YouTube channel, and at the same time you can check out the Instagram and everything. You will see a lot of similarities in the content. I'm just refraining myself from using the word same, so I'm using similarity, and you will know that how they are promoting their content. और अगर आप अपने आप को भी देखोगे कि आप उनके जो main videos हैं, जो उनका pillar content है, you are reaching their pillar content by this the substitute content or the short videos they are using as a marketing tool for the pillar content.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the repurposing content to to acquire people on the different platform. You can also use it for the marketing for your pillar content. So that is the thing which you can also look out. This is also one angle. Yeah, that's it. And thank you, Vedant, for letting me speak.
Thanks, Vishwakant. Thank you so much for joining. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to shoot them at me.
Yeah.
I think Ruba had something, so I told her that we can connect offline for that. That will be easier. But anyone else, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I have a question, which is around YouTube Shorts and the long form videos and the short form videos that we have been talking, right? So there has been like on Twitter, there are a lot of people talking about YouTube Shorts might actually spoil the audience that you might have for your long form content, and not just that, like even the algorithm gets confused between what sort of content that you put on a YouTube channel. Like it's just the same space, but you also post like micro content like shorts and also long form content like 10 minutes videos or even podcasts on the same channel, right? So how do you tackle this problem, or what's like the best way to look at this whole thing, the difference between the short form and then the long form content in these platforms? Yeah.
So yeah, to be honest, there are two schools of thought for the YouTube conundrum. Basically, should you create a new channel for shorts, or should you be creating on the same channel, etc., etc.? And so what I realized as a trend is that the answer will depend on the size of creator that you're speaking with. There is one section of the creator world, which is majority of creators who are not able to handle even one channel. Building another channel and doing all of that is a different ball game altogether. So to them, I recommend start doing this on the same channel. At least you'll start seeing the cumulative of views on that channel. It is not going to harm views in at least the short to medium run, right? It's definitely, there is no proof of it. In certain genres, it is doing it. In certain places, it's not doing it. But it's too random for us to come to a conclusion, at least according to me and the data that I've studied. Start doing it. Forget about the hassle of creating two channels and maintaining two channels and doing things for two places. Just start doing it on the same channel. And once you actually start hitting a benchmark of views, etc., see what happens is also where the people are discovering these content pieces, right? If these people are discovering content pieces on the short feed, then you're good to go. It's not going to be a problem. But these people are then not going to come back and watch your long form content. So understand that is a impact, and that's a change on the metrics that you've been following right now, but there's nothing to worry about. I think overall growing one channel is better than growing both channels. Else you have two edicts and none of them are working. So it becomes crazy.
Yeah, makes sense. Got it. Pranav, I'll just add you on spot. Yeah.
Go for it, Pranav.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, Pranav, you are.
So my question is regarding Josh Talks, the YouTube channel. Like I recently went to the meetup in Gurgaon headquarters, and they asked a question to the audience that what comes to your mind when you hear Josh Talks, the platform. Almost 90% of the people said inspiration. My question is like inspiration, like there are two kinds, like what I have researched about, like eccentric and eccentric, like outside motivation, inside motivation, where outside motivation doesn't last, inside motivation stays forever. So why Josh Talks I have also like somehow perceived as inspiration, where there are multiple form of content across like multiple genre of content where different people of different backgrounds come and talk about. So how do you think that is sustainable in the long term, where in the inside motivation should last? And secondly, how Josh Talks has grown with multiple like diversification of content. If is my question clear? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So to answer the first question, yeah, I think it's a very meta debate to talk between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So I'll keep it simple. I think intrinsic motivation gets built up with a lot of extrinsic motivation. क्या होता है कि what motivation you have inside is also inspired by and almost affected by a lot of people around you and the kind of content you're consuming and how you're spending your time essentially. If you spend your time around losers, you're going to think like a loser, and if you spend your time around winners, you're going to think like a winner. Think of it this in the exact same way, that if instead of wasting your time watching reels, you ended up spending that 1 hour, and that's how much time people spend on reels, just by the way, almost an hour a day. If you just watched, let's say, 3 videos of people that are inspiring to you, right? You're learning from them. You're spending that 1 hour with them. You're spending an hour with Elon Musk, or you're spending an hour with Jeff Bezos, or whoever that idol may be. That is what's going to change your mindset over a period of time. It's not going to happen over a day or two, but it's going to happen over a period of time, over years. But it's got to be built as a habit. So that's the debate over there. The second thing is content diversification has happened, luckily, at Josh Talks, wherein, after I left, of course, they've launched a bunch of channels which are catering to certain niches of audience, which is like Josh Asha is a channel for women, and then there's Josh Money for money related content, right? So that is also happening. So I think what they've stayed true to is the format, but what they've diversified is how, what you're talking about. So I think that depends on brand to brand and person to person, how you want to diversify and keep experimenting and diversifying your content. So that's a personal decision, Vaise. So you can also think about it in the long term, not definitely on the short term.
Got it. Cool. Adil, like you have a question? Yeah, just a second.
Cool.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, Adil.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Hey, Vedant. Very nice to interact with you. Thank you so much for doing this. We briefly interacted when Manish came to the hub in Bangalore. But my question is mainly around podcasts, right? And the repurposing of audio, video, Spotify versus YouTube. So I have a podcast, and one of the things that I've been wondering and battling with internally off late is that should I promote my podcast on YouTube just as aggressively as I do on Spotify, right? So in the sense that, of course, you have the short form, you have the reels, the short form 5-minute clips, all of that, right? And those are the ones that are on top of the funnel and they actually get people to your long form. But should I be putting my long form on YouTube? Because in my research, a lot of the people, especially people like Logan Paul and a lot of the Western podcasters, right? They tend to say that putting your video podcast on YouTube actually hurts your overall podcast brand, right? So is that true? And like, how would you think of like audio versus video in a podcast?
Okay, this is a space that I've actually been dabbling with for the last few months. So I have some strong opinions over here. I think video content is the future. and that's the end of it. I'm not saying that the audio podcasting space is going to die. Of course, it's not going to die. That's also going to grow. But if we talk about growth, video podcasting is just going to grow at probably 10x the pace that audio podcasting is going to grow at. And the reason is very simple. Engagement in video is better. More of your senses, if you got a base level, more of your senses are involved when it comes to video podcasts as compared to audio. So the strategy that I would look at it would be this key. Of course, you've got to distribute on all the audio platforms out there, but you have to do video content. And the format of video content will depend on your personal bandwidth, honestly. So one way to do it is that you're putting out the full video, 100% do that. And the second way to do it is put out the full video, also put out the chapters, right? As something that Lex Friedman does. Joe Rogan, you'd also have seen,
right?
They do the same thing, right? So that overall, but you've also again got to understand what is going to make people click on that short link. What is that one small section without any external context that somebody can click onto and start watching like any other YouTube video? So that will need a little bit of rearranging of the content, maybe a little bit of editing on the podcast podcast file. But essentially, you are just giving yourself more places to be discovered, places like YouTube, which are you just have better retention than a place like Spotify. So I think video podcasts are the future. I think YouTube is actually going to be YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world.
Search engine, right?
So how can your podcast not be over there? It's crazy. If it's on Google, it has to be on YouTube. So that's one way of looking at it as well.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Right. So then in that case, right, does my short form content that I do from the long form, does that become like the end itself? Like, so for instance, I have a main channel, right? So my main channel is, I have like 5 to 7 minute videos, and those are the ones that I'm trying to drive engagement to, right? Yes. Now, if I'm breaking down the podcast into shorter forms, like for instance, the Ranveer show has like a separate clips channel in itself, right? And that seems to have more engagement than his main long form videos. Right. So should I think of it as, okay, my main podcast is what I need to get more views on, retention on, engagement on, or does the clips itself becomes like a second product that is equally important? Because oftentimes I find that people would come for the shorter clips that, you know, gives you that instant hit ki, okay, this was the title, this is I'm getting the answer right there, as opposed to, okay, ki, haan, bhai, ye dekh liya, now let me also listen to the entire long form thing.
Sure. Think of it as a trade-off between attention span and time spent, right? Wherever the time spent is lowest, the attention span is also going to be lowest, and it's going to increase progressively. So it's going to be a funnel. It's also always going to be a funnel, wherein the topmost or the shortest form content is getting the most amount of views. Then your clips are going, and then your main content is going, right? But essentially to grow, and there is a trickle-down effect. There is always a trickle-down effect, right? But for you to grow, whatever your goal may be, see, your goal can just be increasing my overall views, end of story, no matter where they're coming from. Or you're saying, okay, I just want to grow the views or the listens of my main podcast. Either way, you've got to do the short form content as well. And preferably, if you don't have the resources that Ranveer does, on the same channel, right? Don't go the different channel route. That's my personal recommendation to at least folks who are starting out, right? You do it on the same channel, just keep the momentum going over there, right? And eventually you can see when it becomes a breakout, you will have better people than me assisting you for the growth of it. So they'll be able to tell you better. But to begin with, yes, think of it as a funnel. You're doing a lot of views on the top, for middle may eventually leading to your you. But definitely video is video. There's no changing that.
Right. No, that makes sense.
All right, I think that's it. If there are any more questions, folks, if you don't want to speak about it right now, and maybe reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, or send me an email I am just going to share my email ID. So you can drop me an email as well. So Twitter, LinkedIn is preferred, but email is also okay. But thanks a lot for joining. I hope this was helpful. If this was helpful, you can, whoever has your camera on, can give me a thumbs up. So I'll know, okay, this helped you at least in some way. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining, and over to you guys. Back.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Vedant. Thanks a lot for taking your time and sharing this knowledge. I had one question before we sort of like completed. Now everybody has been talking about, like, you know, the organic views going down and sort of like things are not happening. Now, just hypothetical question. Now, does this mean there's a space for a new platform to come? or what is your opinion on this thing? Like, because the attention span of people is going to be the same, right? Now it's just the number of creators who have increased. They're going to pull each of the sort of attention span. Now, who is to sort of blame in this equation, or is there someone to blame? What's your some thoughts around it?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody to blame, but I'm going to tell you my thoughts on it. Think of it in a business model perspective, right? How does Instagram make money, or how does Facebook make money? They make money by ensuring that you're spending as much amount of time as possible on their platform. The more time you spend, the more ads they can deliver, the more they're making money. End of story. That means that their algorithm by default is designed to give you content and show you content that keeps you hooked onto the platform. And think of this almost as, if you go into the psychology of it, and Dharmesh, I'm sure you know about it, is that it's almost like a slot machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
The slot machine, when you gamble using slot machines, right? You're putting in coins in the hope, or if you've used the Credwala app, the same thing happens, in the hope that something good. And that's the dopamine hit that your brain gets. And that's how all algorithms are designed. And that's that inherent bias that these algorithms have. Now, what this will mean for organic views or organic is that sensationalist content or content that gives you the hit is just going to perform better by that bias of the algorithm. And even though Facebook, Instagram, and a bunch of other platforms are trying to work against that, I think it's too complicated to sort of, work against that, because the algorithms have been trained of millions and millions of years of data, almost watch time, to be a certain way. So, which is why I think when it comes to solutioning for this, I think the way we have to look at it as content creators is you've got to, again, keep experimenting and keep seeing what can you hook, which is why the hook has become so important when it comes to content creation. What can you do to hook these people on? So that's reflecting in the way you're creating content also. The first 3 to 5 seconds of any content piece you're putting out there, you've got to work on it more than the rest of your video, I would say. Like, let's say not 5 seconds, the first 15 to 20 seconds. Because that's when the audience is deciding whether they're going to stay or just the next content piece is just a swipe away. And that's also decreasing your organic reach essentially, right? So it's a combination of where we've come because of human behavior, technology, and businesses sort of working towards their goals, to each their own. But it's just the reality is the way it is.
Yeah, brilliant. I would love to take this conversation for another big chat by itself. Yeah. But thanks a lot for taking your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Have a great evening. Chalo, bye.
Bye, folks.